I am super excited to have one of my friends and an amazing expert, Christine Hassler, on the show today. Christine is a master coach, facilitator, and speaker with over 16 years of experience. She's the best-selling author of 3 books, most recently Expectation Hangover, which I love, Free Yourself from the Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want, and is the host of the top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It, where she coaches people live on the show, which I got to say, honestly, is a mad skill to do it live. You have a lot of people who say they're coaches, but you're like, but can you do it live? Because that really indicates a master coach. Christine is known globally for her ability to identify what is holding someone back and compassionately guide them to clarity. So
Mm.
welcome, my friend. I'm happy to have you back on the show.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Terry. I was just thinking how long I've known you now and trips to New York, seeing you, and it's been a while.
Yep. Last time we were together in Cali, it was you, me, and Ashley Turner,
Oh, yeah.
right? Was that
Yep.
the last time? Or
Yeah,
was it your
probably.
book launch? I mean, I just feel like there was so many different things that we've
I
done, but how
know.
many years has it been? Do you know?
Over 10, I think.
Wow, we're so young. Anyway,
I know. Time warp.
anyway, you're always talking about interesting stuff
Mm.
publicly, and I think a lot of our work aligns. So I'm always interested in what you're doing because there's always a different, some kind of accessibility point that I find that you just naturally have a way of making things that can be complex
Mhm.
accessible, like boiling it down to what's what. So let's talk a little bit about what you're most lit up about right now.
Oh, goodness. Well, I can kind of divide it into professionally and personally, even though they intertwine so much.
Please do.
Professionally, I'm really excited. We've got a coaching institute that we launched, and I'm about to teach my third inner child workshop, which I love because, I have found that and when anybody comes to me, whether it's on the podcast or one-on-one client or in retreats, anything that's up for them in their present day life, 99.9% of the time has roots to their childhood. And it just keeps showing up over and over again. And I know for me, connecting to my inner child and having her feel really, really safe. And P.S., finding her and connecting to her wasn't easy. It wasn't an overnight process. It took me some time to get in there and really feel that authentic connection. But that has really been the key to helping me with my anxiety, getting clear about what's truly aligned and what's me wanting to people please or coming from ego. It's been my connection to my joy, my deepest emotions. It's been such a doorway to greater connection with spirit. And I would say that's what really is lighting me up in my personal life too, is a deeper connection to that little girl. Before this show, we're having a massive snowstorm here in Texas, which is unprecedented because we don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. And so all my workouts have been inside. And so I was taking a dance class and my husband came down. He just started looking at me. He started crying, which is so sweet. And he's like, I so see your little girl. Like I see your adolescent trying to do these dance moves right now. And it was so great because in the past I would have been shamed. If he came down and saw me, I would have felt so much shame because I'm not very coordinated. No one's inviting me to choreograph a dance for them. Not my strong suit. And I just kept dancing. And that's not because he makes me feel so comfortable. It's because I've gotten comfortable within myself. And I reconnected to that little girl and that younger part who just is uninhibited and doesn't really care. And so that's what I'd have to say I'm most excited about in my life, especially the past year, is really getting to the point where like, I care so much less about what other people think. It's so liberating. I mean, it still comes up, still human, but
Sure.
man, Terry, is it liberating not to care as much what people think.
It is, and it's such a way of staying trapped. Like
Mm,
when we're so having the disease to please and being in that people pleasing syndrome and needing all of this external validation, there's also something else lost, which is how can you ever live the life that your unique path, right? Is so all of us are so different. How are you going to do that if you're being like, but my family really wanted me to be a lawyer, or my spouse thinks that I shouldn't dance because I'm not super coordinated, or whatever the heck,
right.
we're limiting our lives. But I want to go back to what you said about locating, making the connection with your inner
Mhm.
child. And can you give us an idea of how you did do that. Because I agree, in my own therapeutic process and what I
Mhm.
teach clients is that it takes time. But what are things that have helped you?
The biggest and simplest thing that has helped me is looking at pictures and not just glancing through photo albums, but having a few pictures of different ages when I'm looking into the camera. Like it's a school shot or some shot where I'm looking into the camera and I can connect with my own eyes. And just sitting and doing a meditation with that picture. Nothing fancy, just sitting and looking at the picture. Like that's the meditation. And just noticing what comes up and I think all of us, when we think of a child, especially a young child, we can feel the feeling of compassion because we just see so much innocence in that. And so that was really that was the first step, just getting those pictures and just meditating with them and being like, oh my gosh, that is me. I wasn't always an adult. Like I have this little one inside of me. And then the next thing that really helped me was dominant, non-dominant handwriting. So I would, as big Christine, my right hand is my dominant hand. I would just write, hi, little Christine. I really am enjoying looking at you in the picture. You're super cute. Is there anything you want to say? And then with my non-dominant hand, which is my left hand, I'd draw or write or whatever would come forward. And it felt forced at first and it felt awkward. And I felt like I was making it up. But with anything, with time, those aspects, because the inner child lives so much in the subconscious and in the body. And after time, like those parts start to trust because the inner child, usually for most of us, feels abandoned by us and feels rejected by us. And so is often hiding and doesn't feel safe. And I was someone who really didn't feel safe in my body. I dealt with a lot of anxiety, depression. And so if I don't feel safe in my body, then for sure my little girl isn't going to feel safe in my body. So I had to gently make headway. So it was a picture, it was a dominant, non-dominant handwriting, and then it was guided visualization. I couldn't really take myself there. So it was guided visualization / hypnosis. And I remember the first time someone took me through that I actually saw little Christine, she was standing behind a tree and she had her arms folded. And every time I tried to see her, she'd just turn her back and turn her back. So I couldn't see her face. And what I made that mean and what it felt like is that she just didn't trust me. And so, and this is where intuition comes into play. And so intuitively, because anyone who's a parent or you've ever had a pet or stepkids or whatever it is, it's so much intuition. You just kind of go with the feeling. And so is it with your inner parent to inner child. And so that inner parent in me was like, well, maybe she just needs me to come back every day. Maybe she just needs me to prove that I'm not just doing an exercise because I want something from her, that I'm actually going to show up and come back every day. And so I did that meditation day after day until she finally turned and looked at me. And then it was just a gradual dialogue. Now, because I have been working with little Christine, I can access her pretty quickly. The picture is still my fastest way, but even a hand on my heart, hand on my belly, and just closing my eyes and taking a few deep breaths, I can feel that little one inside and talk to
All
her
right,
that
let's
way.
do that right now,
Yeah.
everybody. So you guys listening, me and Christine, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see, so hand on heart, hand on belly, and just a couple of deep breaths, bringing your inner child to mind.
Yeah, and just see that little one. And whatever age comes forward is perfect. Maybe you see them in your bedroom or a grandparent's house or a playground.
What if you see them because it was in a picture? Like, is that okay?
Yeah, totally. However you see them is perfect. And just notice. And the important thing for that little one is to know you don't want anything from them. You don't need to know anything. You don't need them to feel anything. You're really there for them.
So really, we're just making the connection.
Yeah.
All right, that felt pretty good.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things to say to the little one is, You are safe. I am here, and we are safe. Just that little, because it's really, yes, the inner child for sure needs love and compassion, but the primary thing that little one needs is to feel safe with you. Then everything else comes. And this is so key, especially, anxiety, panic attacks, this is all stuff that I've dealt with. And all the tapping and EMDR and all that stuff was great.
Mm.
But without that connection to little Christina and making her feel safe, those things didn't get as deep as I would have liked them to go. But when I can connect to little Christine, that part of me, that super tender, sensitive, vulnerable part, also this magical part, then those things to help calm the nervous system work better. When we can invite that inner child in to the breath work or to the tapping or to the binaural beats or whatever we're doing, then it's like, okay, we're calming that part of us, and we can take advantage of the tools in a deeper way.
What's so interesting about, you're doing a workshop. So here's the thing, like anyone can learn. And before I became a psychotherapist, I really was like thumbs down on inner child work. And of course, isn't it always the way that you don't know shit about it, but you're like, I think that's bullshit. I don't know. What are they talking about? So when I became a therapist, within the first 2 years, I was like, holy crap, this thing is so real and so important. And all of these original injuries, where I would see that my clients were stuck at a certain phase of development, it was all connected to the wounding of the inner child. And again, as a very straightforward and very true talker, like I usually am, and not very woo-woo from Jersey. I mean, you know the thing. It really had to, I conclusively saw a change in
Mm,
my clients when we would, as you're saying, similar but different ways of slowly but surely acknowledging. But the description, and then I want to know what you think about this. It's like when you're in a situation and you're fine normally about whatever, and you get into a situation. I had a situation with a boss many years ago who every time I saw this guy, I like would dive into the ladies' room to avoid him. So, and I was in grad school to become a psychotherapist. So I wasn't like 15. I was like 28,
yeah.
30, And I was complaining to my therapist, being like, well, he's just a jerk. It's him. He's just cold. He's just dismissive. He's just rejecting, just
Call him. Yeah. Mhm.
you don't need to be a therapist to be like, who else was cold, dismissive, and rejecting? And when we finally, she was like, Tara, can you do me a favor? Can you describe Dr. Washington again? I was like, I mean, tall, handsome, deep voice, never talks very much. But he's kind of cold. He's judgmental, all these things, which of course I didn't know about that guy. And then she's like, who does he remind you of? And I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. I'm almost a therapist and I did not see that coming, that I was having this experience. But in describing the actual experience, it's like I would turn into my 10-year-old me
Mm,
in the presence of this person because of my unresolved wounds with
mhm.
my father. So, through the therapeutic process, of course, we look at the wounds and write about it and talk about it and honor it. But I always would say to my clients, you know that something's going on, that there's something that needs your attention. If you suddenly feel like you become like your 18-year-old self in an interaction, a
Yeah.
15-year-old self, 10-year-old self, it actually happens that way. And you're like, oh, something happened when I was 10, 18, 15 that still might need my attention,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how do you relate to your people who are interested in doing the workshop and want to actually come and do it? How are you finding with the other workshops that you've done and your clients who've been through this, how are they relating to their inner child after they learn the techniques?
Mhm. Oh, they fall in love. They just fall in love. It is just so beautiful. We start on a Friday and we finish on a Sunday evening, and just the shifts and the pictures people are drawing and just the connection people are having, they feel like a proud parent. And even if people haven't had children, we know what that feeling feels like, to be so proud of something that you care so much about. There's such deep forgiveness. There's such a sense of safety. There's so much less anxiety, and also just massive creativity is unleashed. Because I know so many people that are trying to figure out like, what's my purpose, or they want clarity about something. Guess who has the answers? The inner child. Because there's that inner child that's wounded and activated. Like I can think of, a time in my life where I was dating, and definitely my 14-year-old was the one picking all the men I was dating for sure. And it didn't go so well because I had a 14-year-old picking it, right? And so we can have those parts that are activated, need our attention and need our healing, and the parts that are just so joyful and so deeply connected to who we are, and really remember like our true core essence. That's always there. And so we can, when we work with the inner child, and inner child work, as you know, Terri, I just think it's important for us to talk about. Number one, you don't have to remember your childhood to do inner child work. You
That's
do not have to
major.
remember the specifics. And number two, you do not, and really should not, go back and relive your childhood trauma. That's not inner child work either. We do some going back work, but just going back and letting the child maybe express emotions and thoughts and feelings that they never got to, and say, it's okay, I'm here, let it out, you're safe now. This isn't, okay, let's remember at 8 years old when that thing happened with uncle, let's go back and think about it. No, 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 we don't have to do that. We can take that 8-year-old out of that place, bring him or her into our present and be like, what are you feeling? Tell me all about it. I am here. And so I think that's what keeps a lot of people away from inner child work, is because they think, oh gosh, I don't want to, my childhood was shitty enough. I don't want to go back and have to relive it. You don't have to. This is really about rescuing that inner child from the past where they're kind of trapped, bringing them into the now with you so you can really be connected to all their magic and joy. So to answer your question, that's another thing we see. People get clear about relationships because, oh my gosh, is the inner child activated in relationships? Whoa.
So much.
Massively. So much. I mean, nothing triggers parent stuff and family of origin stuff more than romantic relationships, and then having your own children. So we get clarity on that, clarity on career stuff, more creativity, so much less anxiety, so much less anxiety. Yeah. And just really like falling in love with yourself again. It's really sweet.
Well, let's look at from a therapeutic point of view. So much less anxiety makes so much sense.
Mm,
So if you imagine that some of the childhood experiences were I wasn't protected or I wasn't seen. As you gently and consistently, as you said, right, very patiently took your time to continue to do the meditation, to continue to go back and visit, to be like, I don't need anything from you. I'm not trying to get something from you. It's like there's the trust issues and the fear, the hypervigilance that a lot of kids need to be safe in chaotic homes. You're by checking in and by saying, you're safe, I'm safe, we're safe on a regular basis, and then making choices in your life that make those things true. Like I would always say to my clients, like if we were delving into inner child work, like you have to understand that if you continue to choose and stay in relationships where you feel minimized or degraded or not seen, who is being activated? You wonder why you can't sleep. You wonder why you're breaking out in hives. You wonder why, because of course, anxiety manifests in lots of different ways.
mm,
And it's like how we really build the trust, I say, of course, because I'm, a psychotherapist. So that's my main modality. But how we really build the trust is reassuring
yep.
our inner child and by having good boundaries.
Yep. Yeah. If we do all this inner child work and then we go and soothe our feelings through drinking, or we get back with an ex who continually betrayed us and makes us feel unsafe, the inner child's going to be like, I don't trust you again. Like that was all phony. Like you come and you write to me and you look at me in the picture, but you're not taking care of me in the way that I need. And I love that you said that because it's such a key work. Like every time we betray ourselves, we betray that inner child. And it just, the disconnect goes stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's been a really important thing for me in my inner child work, is keeping my word, not just in terms of doing my meditation and showing up for her, but keeping my word in terms of like, one thing with boundaries for me, one thing that my inner child hates, she does not like being busy, busy, busy. She likes time to play. She likes spaciousness. And for a good 12, 15 years of my life, my adult life, I was busy, 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 busy. If I wasn't on a plane, I was thinking about being on a plane. It was just all over. And in a lot of my inner child work, she said to me, I just need you to rest. Like, I need you to be grounded. So the inner child requests, they can be boundaries with other people, or they can be boundaries with ourselves in terms of things we need to shift.
Oh, I think that definitely the internal boundaries are really, they have to come first. And it's not that I think they're all equally important though, right?
Yeah,
What you
for
just
sure.
described.
For sure.
And having her be able to trust you
For sure.
because you keep your word to yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you say you're not going to work till 11 o'clock at night, you don't. Or you're going to, get off of social media for the weekend or whatever the thing is that you know that she would love because it's expansive, because it's room to play. The joy, though, what I have seen and noticed in myself is that the less of a workaholic I was through my own healing
Mhm.
process. I mean, I still probably work too much, but I mean, not to the degree that it made me sick.
Mhm.
The more I want to have fun, the more I'm honoring what did I love to do as a kid?
Mm.
Don't I love to do all those same things now? And I do. Trampoline, like my workout during the crackdown or whatever we're calling it, sheltering in place crackdown. Feels like martial law, but I guess it wasn't. It has been mini trampoline work
Yeah, I love that.
because it's fun.
Yeah,
That's
it's fun.
literally why, because it's fun, you
It
know?
is fun. Yeah, no, I have one. I have my little rebounder that my
You
little
do?
girl loves. Yeah. And that's the same thing with the dance class. I was like, I don't really want to do some weightlifting or cardio thing. I just want to be fun and silly. And as there's so much freedom that comes with doing inner child work. And yeah, at first it can be daunting because when we first do the inner child work, stuff can come up. Sometimes memories come up. I mean, I had a very traumatic memory that came up when I was 35, nearly 30 years after it happened, when I started doing inner child work. Because one of the things we do as children, as you know, Terry, is whatever we can't mentally process, we'll just like file away in far, far, far in that subconscious. And I think it's the mind or psyche's way of protecting us. And I remembered when I was ready to remember. I remembered, thankfully, when I had the support system in place to deal with it, so that it wasn't another trauma in remembering. It was like, oh,
Right.
wow. It was actually when I remembered, I was like, you know what? This explains so much. This explains so much. It was like a missing piece. And that's the beauty of doing this work, is a lot of the things that you don't understand why you do what you do. For example, I was just on a call with a client before this, and she has a lot of rules and restrictions on her spouse. Part of it is because he's been untrustworthy, but part of why he's been untrustworthy is she has so much rules and restrictions.
Mhm.
He gets passive and rebels and lives in the shadow, feeds her trust issues, and it's just a cycle. And we were talking about her protective mechanisms. And so much of these protective mechanisms that we adopt as adults, but they really start in our childhood, really just block us from love and intimacy. So one of her protective mechanisms is, let me just control everything and keep people at a distance and not really let anyone in. And so she thinks she's protecting herself. She thinks she's protecting the little one inside who is scared, but she's really not protecting the inner child at all. The inner child isn't feeling protected. The inner child is feeling like my needs aren't met because I'm not really feeling safe. And so one way to really look at, where you need to shift some of your inner parenting is look at some of these protective strategies that you have that actually keep you from intimacy, keep you from going after your dreams, keep you from being healthy, keep you from having healthy relationships, because all they're doing is keeping you in a comfort zone where you feel like you have control. And control and certainty is something that's important to the inner child, but it doesn't come from micromanaging your life and putting all kinds of barriers around you. It really comes from that inner sense of security and safety. And the inner child feels like you're in control, like you have dominion of your life versus being just a victim of your life.
So what were your protective, I could
Uh,
guess, but I want to hear.
where do I begin? So for sure, achieving. If I could focus just on achieving things, then I didn't have to feel my pain. So that's another thing protective mechanisms do, like keep us away from our pain. If I just do, then I don't have to feel my anxiety. I don't have to feel my depression. I don't have to feel my low self-worth. I don't have to feel any of that. I can just focus on
Yeah.
what I want to do. So that was one of them. Being guarded, not really letting people in. And how that showed up is I would pretend everything was fine. I was one of those people whose life on the outside could look so squeaky clean and perfect. And not really letting people in and being like, you know what, I'm really struggling. Like I don't have it all together, like
Yeah.
at all. I would say those were and one more, control. Definitely wanting to control everything. And that's one thing. My husband's like a wild stallion. So he's my perfect teacher for this. He does not like to be controlled whatsoever. The whole lockdown or crackdown, as you call it, has been really, really hard for him because he does not like restriction. So he's been a good teacher because I sometimes want to feel safe by trying to control him. And he's like, like that's not how we're going to do this. So that's been a good lesson for me.
I think that a lot of the women in my crew, and I mean, I have some men too, but I mean, my predominant,
Mhm.
crew members are female, that a lot of them are high achieving, and work a lot.
Mhm.
And I think that I call it high functioning codependent, which is not the same as the regular style codependent because it means we're so capable that people would never think you're codependent, right? They don't understand. We have this misunderstanding about codependency. A lot of times people are like, oh, codependent. If I used to say this to my clients, I'd be like, all right, we're talking about codependency. They'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm not codependent. Everyone depends on me. I'm the one who gets all the shit done. I'm the one who does everything. So no, you are mistaken. And I'm like, no, let's talk about what it really is. If
Yep.
you're a high functioning codependent, you are overly invested in the feeling states, the decisions, and the outcomes of other people.
Yep.
But it's almost like Ginger Rogers, like you're so good. You're like doing everything Fred Astaire's doing, except you're doing it
Yeah.
backwards and in heels,
Yeah.
where people just feel like you have it together, which is kind of what you were saying before. You had this external life, and we both have histories where we were both talent agents
Mhm.
into Hollywood
I know.
back in the day,
Mhm.
um, and how the illusion of that life and
Yeah.
that world is an illusion. Not everyone's, but mine was as well, and yours too. And that um, if there isn't happiness in that experience, but I think that a lot of people, women in particular, have the desire for control, covert or overt bids for control of the big and the little things. I was just saying to my team today, I can see I'm getting stressed about so my book comes out on April 20th, as you know, and as my audience knows. Um, but I'm like starting to micromanage the shit out of things.
I can relate.
And I was like, so Haley, did this thing like just stop? And then she was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I let the other person know, but I didn't. And I literally was like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm just micromanaging like a maniac. I do apologize. That's fine. It has nothing to do with me. Why am I doing that? But it's a way of not feeling
Yeah.
the things you don't want to feel. Now, when you do the work, you get healthier. You can recognize those things in the moment. But I think that bringing it sort of back to the inner child work. And first of all, before we go on, how can people, if people are interested, how can they find
Mm.
out more about the inner child? It's a virtual workshop, weekend workshop that's coming up.
Correct. Thank you so much. It's a virtual weekend workshop. It's great if you can join live. It's March 19th through 21st, but you don't have to join live. You can watch the recordings as well. So if it doesn't work for your time zone or whatever, you have access to recordings for about 30 days. So you have 30 days to do it. And if you just go to christinehasser.com/inner child, that's where all the info is.
Excellent. And this is co-ed, like more
Yes.
any gender can
Co-ed,
do it?
any gender. We do recommend if your partner's going to do it, to have separate registrations and do it in separate rooms,
Yeah.
on your own laptops, because it's between you and your inner child, and you don't want to be worried about his inner child while you're doing the work. So we
Yeah.
have lots of couples that do it together. He's upstairs, she's
I
downstairs.
love it.
Yeah, it's good.
That is super fun. And everyone else who wants to come find you can just find you at christinehassler.com.
That's
And
great.
and that's you on Insta too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Instagram is like the only social media platform I use. I've never been a social media girl. I was way better in the 80s and 90s. All this technology is just like, I can't even. And now there's Clubhouse and this and that. And I'm like, it's too much.
Can I just tell you before we go, like I got the invite to Clubhouse and someone on my team is like, no, it's really though addicting. Like you'll see. And I was like, no, it's not. I
Yeah,
haven't
no,
been on once. Don't
no,
want to, don't care. Are you kidding? I do this for a living.
I
I
know.
do so much effing talking.
I know, me too.
You think I want to go somewhere where I want to effing talk some more? I don't.
Just be cool, just quiet, quiet. No, I feel
Please.
the same way. I feel the
Yeah.
same
Oy vey.
way.
I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so
Mm,
much for spending so much time with us.
of
I
course.
love you. I'm so into the work that you're doing in the world. I so appreciate the work that you're doing in the world. And I hope that lots and lots of people want to come and do the Inner Child Workshop. If I wasn't just about to birth a book baby, I'd be doing it myself.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. I've always adored and respected you so much. It's so incredible to have a real, true licensed psychotherapist move into this world of coaching and personal development, because I think a lot of kind of people get lost, especially in the psychology part. And you just bring so much grounding information and safety to people, and knowledge, of course. So just thank you so much for the work that you do.
Aw, you're welcome, my friend. Thanks for being here.